And welcome back to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes to us from Azog, Twin Star Azog. And you asked the question, who would win to fight Azog the Defiler, the White Orc from the Hobbit series, whose story arc really didn't mean anything, versus Michael Myers. I've done Michael Myers many, many times. Michael Myers himself has commented on my verses of him and disagreed with my assessment quite a lot. But someone obviously with the username Michael Myers does that. But yeah, so let's talk about Azog. He's actually going to probably be the quicker one to talk about, despite the fact I've done Michael so many times on the channel. Azog the Defiler is a white orc, which I'm guessing makes him unique among orcs. You don't really see them in the Lord of the Rings series at all, nor in White Ordokai. But as a white orc, he's clear. I mean, I take that back. His right hand is kind of a white orc, but he's clear. He's a white, he's a stark white orc. He's also missing an arm, though, taken by Thorin himself in their first confrontation. But he does have levels of strategy. He's not necessarily stupid. He's just simple, but he's a warrior. He's very fierce, very dedicated to taking out Thorin and all, his ilk. He's pretty durable. He survived being thrown under the ice and nearly drowning, but he survived that, cracked right through the ice and came after Thorin. He has this basic implant, which more or less acts as a secondary arm. It's not even really an arm. It's excuse me. I think I slept wrong or something, because my upper arm right near my shoulder is killing. There's like a sharp stab kind of feeling right there, right in the center of the meat. It's very interesting. I think I just kind of pulled it yesterday, so that's probably where it's coming from. Anyway, he's still an expert at using weapons, swords, whatever. He can really, not necessarily an expert like in jack of all trades, but he knows how to kill someone with like flail or a sword or something like that, because he is a warrior. He does have the physiology of an orc. We have to keep that in mind. So he's much stronger than the average human, and even stronger than the average dwarf. I would say then that probably factors in durability to some extent, but that doesn't mean like if you shot him, he'd be able to just bounce off the bullet. No, he'd probably still take the bullet. That said, he's still pretty, relatively easy to kill. Stab him. That's how he got killed. You could blow him up. You could chop his head off. The whole 9 yards. But yeah, he's much stronger than the average person, though we never really see a full demonstration of his strength. I think the best we see is that I think he lifted one of the dwarves up at one point with either one hand or two, which still, that's a couple 100 pounds you're just lifting over your head with no real effort whatsoever. And he has a wog with him, which is a type of like wolf hyena creature in the Lord of the Rings. Of course, to be fair, deer and normal animals do exist in the Lord of the Rings too, but there are also fantasy creatures as well. Not that I'd say that we count that in his fight. I don't think that's fair. He also, as you can see in the picture kind of here, the V's kind of over it. He does have some body armor he does wear, so he does have that for some extra layers of protection. The Michael Myers. So whenever I talk about Michael Myers, we have to talk about a couple different versions of Michael Myers. So there is the original series Michael Myers, which we can, in theory, say which is dependent on what you say the original series is, because technically speaking, all of the Michael Myers, save for the Rob Zombie Halloween Michael Myers, all stem from the original movie. Even like the second one. The second one stops being canon if you go into the third one, if I'm not mistaken. Because the second one is kind of like the end of that story, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I could be wrong. It's been a while. So you have Halloween and the Halloween Kills Us will eventually come out. Michael Myers, older, but he's still Michael Myers. You have the H2O and Resurrection Michael Myers, which is a different timeline Michael Myers. You have the Cult of Thorns, which is essentially the original 6 films, not including Season of the Witch, which isn't canon within the Halloween universe. Hell, there's a commercial for that movie in that universe, so it's not canon. But basically, the original timeline, I guess you could call it, Michael Myers, where it's the only one kind of timeline we know where it is actually said he is supernaturally imbued. And then you have Rob's. I need to go over that again. Original series leading into the most recent Halloween Michael Myers. Original series Cult of Thorn Michael Myers. H2O Resurrection Michael Myers. Then you have Rob Zombie Michael Myers. Now, when it comes to the most recent Michael Myers, I think he's like supposed to be like 70 some odd years old, 60 to 70 some odd years old. He's still, here's the thing, the implication that he is supernatural is still there, but the problem is nothing is ever, here's the problem anyone ever gives me when it's just like, he can do this and this and this, he's like this, like, okay, except for Cult of Thorn, that while there are implications that he is supernatural, nothing is ever definitively said. So we have to go with, we can infer some things, but we can't take anything out of context. For example, is it possible that he can teleport similar to Jason? Theoretically, because he's supposedly the boogeyman. Theoretically, yes, we could make that inferral. But most of the time, I actually wouldn't go with the idea that he can teleport. If anything, he's just really good at stealth. He also doesn't really move very fast. Like, Michael Myers takes his time. Except for Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie does tend to move a bit quicker than, say, the other versions. But we never see him running. He's just walking or like a fast walk. That's basically it. Or, he'll quickly rush at you if, like, you're trying to get away in the car won't start. He's walking towards you. The car starts, and he kind of just starts walking a bit faster and maybe tries to run and grab on it. Something like that. I don't know. But anyway, so if we're talking about the most recent version, he's still a beast physically, but he is human. I mean, he bleeds. It's actually very feasible he could be killed. We know he's not dead by the end of this one because we got a sequel coming up. Because he gets his hand blown off by a shotgun that Laurie had. His daughter shoots him. Now, clearly, there is something off about it. He might be supernatural. I'm not saying he isn't, but I'm just saying there isn't any definitive evidence. There's nothing actually said that he is. There's just the fear that Laurie has of him, and so forth. But he does take to be fair, though, her daughter, Judy Greer, it does shoot her, does shoot him. He does take it's not like it's a super high caliber weapon either, and if I remember correctly, she doesn't shoot him in a vital point. So yeah, a normal person could walk that off, and he's clearly not a normal person. He's also still, like I said, a physical beast. He moved that entire counter, just like, boom, just flew it. So he didn't like throw it like just through a window or anything, but he just moved it. He moved it on his own, which is actually very impressive. Michael Myers almost always carries a kitchen knife with him, although he will use other weapons. You go into H2O, you go into Rob Zombie, Michael Myers. Again, he is more or less human, but he's either mentally ill. I can't remember exactly the H2O Michael Myers. Hold on. H2O, I keep saying that. Halloween 2. Halloween 2. Where is that one? 2019. Okay, 2009. See, Halloween 2. I'm trying to remember exactly what the problem. Michael appears at the party, kills her. Her hallucination can include acting Michael's her. Loomis. Like, so we know Michael apparently is hallucinating, or like has massive hallucinations, but also Laurie has those hallucinations as well. So is it just like a genetic kind of problem they both have, or is it the fact that there was some supernatural element in the works here? I don't think it's ever fully explained what's going on in that movie. Of course, I never really watched that. I'll be honest, I think I've seen some of the first one, Rob Zombie one. I never really watched. I didn't watch the second one at all. Like it was not for me. So yeah. Again, still more or less human. He's just a big, powerful dude, and he's got problems. The Resurrection, H2O, and the Cult of Thorn. Particularly Cult of Thorn. We know for a fact there were supernatural elements in that one. But the H2O Resurrection one, you could make an argument for some sort of supernatural element to Michael Myers because he survived being burned alive in a scenario where most people wouldn't survive that. I mean, again, nothing's fully stayed. He did take a he was still very durable. He took a chainsaw, it kind of just bounced off him. Again, though, you were talking about a relatively thin woman. I mean, she wasn't like out of shape or anything, but chainsaws aren't light, and she was scared and wielding it all willy-nilly. So the idea that a chainsaw couldn't cut Michael Myers, I don't buy. Anyone with actually has the fortitude, mental state, and physical ability to just press it and keep it there would probably do more damage to him. He did also took a bunch of hits from a metal rod that Ludacris was based. No, was it Ludacris? No, Busta Rhymes. Sorry, Busta Rhymes was hitting him with in their fight. So I mean, he still got hurt, and he still was ultimately beaten. But he is no joke. He's not a he's still a very durable, very scary individual. And then you talk about the Cult of Thorn. Now, this is the one where a lot of people always bring up the major, like, oh, Michael Myers is going to do this and this and this. So, from a strength perspective, I don't recall. See, someone brought up, I've seen him move a car. So I'm like, what? Maybe I'm forgetting the scene where he moved a car, lifted a car with his bare hands. I don't think he's ever done that. Maybe I'm just forgetting it. Now, that's not to say he's not strong. He's still massively strong, much stronger than your average person. He can one-hand someone just by their throat, and hold them up there, and then just stab and keep them there. So he can one arm like a couple 100 pounds, no problem, honestly. So the idea that he might be able to move a car in some fashion isn't actually as far-fetched as I initially thought it sounded. But the idea that he could just flip a car is no. That's something that's way beyond his capabilities, I would imagine. Just like Hulk flip it, basically. No. But he can punch through walls. He can, break down doors. He is physically very powerful and very durable too, as he survived. Again, now here's the thing. Again, I'm trying to remember which one it was. I believe it is the fourth film where they blow him up in the well, but it's the fifth film where he actually makes it out into the river and is in a coma for about a year. And then it's the fifth film at the end where he's actually in jail, and then the cult breaks him out. I think that's how it went. Anyway, so you see, it's very difficult to understand that scene because it's implied they blew him up, but then we see him escaped with no injuries whatsoever. But we've also seen in the first Halloween, they got shot 6 times by Loomis. And those injuries were there. So the idea that he survived an explosion to the face without any actual noticeable injuries from the explosion, burns or otherwise, nah. What's most likely what happened is we do know he got shot multiple times before that happened. But B, and more importantly, if he got any brunt of the explosion, it was probably more the concussive force and maybe a bit of the shrapnel and maybe some of the fire. He wasn't smack dab in the epicenter because I doubt he would survive that. And even then, he still had to go into basically Superman healing coma for a year. Ultimately, he walked it off. He does have a healing factor to some degree. To what extent that healing factor works, though, never really said. But ultimately, yeah, he's still very durable. He's also not dumb either. We need to bring that up too. He's not dumb by any stretch of the means. He's just single-minded because he knows how to drive. He knows how to actually set up a trap if he needs to. I wouldn't call him a woodsman like Jason surprisingly is, but he knows how to set up a trap. He knows how to stealth. He knows where his quarry is going to be. So, yeah, it's one of those things where he's certainly not stupid at any means. I wouldn't even go so far as to say someone like Jason is stupid. He's just simple. Whereas Michael is single-minded. I will say, between the 3 biggest slashers, Michael, Freddy, and Jason, Freddy's the most intelligent of them. And that's not because he's the only one who actually speaks. I actually got the entirety of the series. Although I don't know if the reboot was included in it. But I got the entirety of the Nightmare on Elm Street series for Halloween as a kind of like a Secret Santa, or in this case, what was it called? It was basically like a Secret Santa for Halloween. It was pretty. I'm like, oh yeah, sweet. I haven't actually sat down and watched it. I haven't watched a lot of my movies in a while that I just have sitting over there. It's because of the streaming age, we're watching more stuff on streaming. Technically, but no, they're there. I have them there. I can watch them when I want to. So ultimately, yeah. Who wins in this fight? I'll be honest, the only version of Michael that's going to be giving Orzog or Azog any real problem is going to be the Cult of Thorn Michael. The reason for that is the rest of them are just humans. Now, he was defeated by Thorin, sure, but Thorin was armed with a fucking sword, not a freaking like butcher's knife. Also, Michael is just slow. Like even in like, except in like the Rob Zombie versions, he's not a very quick mover, even like combat or anything like that. Now that's not to say he's just gonna sit there and take a stab and die. Like if he sees that Azog, I keep saying Azog is armed with a sword, he's not just gonna let Azog just stab him. However, we've seen him just let himself take hits from individuals, and until they tire himself out or until he just catches them. So I do think he would be inclined to let Azog take a swing at him. Unfortunately, I also think Azog is probably physically more naturally powerful than Michael is, just given the nature of being an orc. Add on the fact he's also a lot faster as a whole and far more brutal and ruthless. Don't get me wrong, Michael is ruthless in a different way and brutal in a different way. But in terms of actually beating on someone, oh no, Azog's got him beat on that. So he'll smack Michael, and because he's that much stronger than a normal person, that's not going to tickle. And that didn't tickle either. God damn, what is going on with my arm right now? Oh man, I'll have to take like an aspirin or something later. This actually really hurts. And for anyone, it's not like I'm having a heart attack. No, I know it here too. But no, it's just bad, really bad muscle pain right now. Anyway, so yeah, Azog come in. His first hit would probably knock Michael down. Michael would get up knowing he's like, okay, I can't let this guy hit me again. Gets back up, but Azog would be on top of him. That's the biggest problem, is that I see almost every scenario where Michael lets him get the first hit in. And if you don't think that's the case, keep in mind that we've seen that's the case, where someone's taking Michael on and he lets him get a hit in and then just counters. Or, he sneaks up on someone or whatever. Or he'll catch the punch. Unfortunately, Azog's not someone he can just catch a punch with. No, physically, it's not that easy for him. And even if he did, Azog's got another arm, which is fake, that Michael can't just simply grab. Or he could grab it and pull it out, but then Azog would just, headbutt him, whatever. He maybe tries to attack Azog with his own arm, but Azog has a blade on him because he carries a sword with him. So he would come, or a flail, and just beat on Michael. And Michael, for all of his strengths and powers, is still human. And if anyone tries to argue that Cult of Thorn Michael isn't human, you're trying to play favoritism there. Cult of Thorn Michael is human. He's just supernaturally enhanced. You have to make that distinction. But like Jason, for example, for a couple of iterations of him is still human until he dies and comes back and dies again. Then he's like a zombie at that point. Freddy stopped being human. He's a dream demon. Michael is actually, in every version, human. It's like, no, he's the boogeyman. No. Just because you call him the boogeyman doesn't actually make him the boogeyman. There are many different interpretations of the boogeyman. He might be one of them, but this interpretation is just a human who doesn't seem to be able to stop. So the only question is there any version of Michael that I think could beat him? Because Rob Zombies is just a big human. And don't get me wrong, we know humans can beat orcs. I should be very clear. Humans can beat orcs. We see that in Lord of the Rings all the time. But if we're talking about the nature of said human versus the nature of said orc, in this case, Michael's nature to be kind of just slow and methodical a lot of the time really doesn't play well against the individual who's of maybe not equal, but either greater, equal, or comparable strength. Comparable on some level, be it greater or a little slightly lesser. Either way, he's in the same ballpark, I'd imagine. So when you have that nature versus someone who is of equal you in physicality, that nature doesn't work in a freaking fight then. Like, even if he sternly just tries, Azog's just like, you have a knife, I got a sword. He'd cut Michael's hand off. If Michael can lose his fingers in a shotgun, then he can get his hand cut off. And as soon as one of his hands gets cut off, Michael's probably realizes he's in trouble. Like maybe he do a Jason thing, like in Freddy versus Jason, just look at his hand, and then Azog comes in and stabs him or whatever. Yeah, he's not immune to dismemberment. He's just not immune to most things that would kill a person. He's just slightly more resistant. Which again leads us back to the only Michael who might stand a chance, the Cult of Thorns Michael. Unfortunately, he still has the same mentality and methodology. The only difference is he does have some supernatural enhancements. The problem is I don't think the supernatural enhancements really do much. We know he can heal greater. We know he's a bit more durable. We know he's a bit stronger. But that doesn't ultimately do anything when it comes to an actual fight in this case. When you're dealing with someone who's a lot more relentless, I think that's the best way to put it. A lot more relentless versus someone who's they're both relentless in a different way. One is up in your face, relentless, fast and hard because he's a fighter and a warrior and a savage, where the other is a lot more relentless as the just continuing, looming, stalking shadow. And I think that's the difference here. One is just going to be, if Michael comes in, hits you, and you go down, he's just going to slowly walk towards you, and to try to kill you and all that. Whereas Azog hits you, it's not going to be, boom, I'm going to walk towards you. Boom, I'm going to be on you now, and I'm just going to beat you to death. Maybe I'm going to tear out your innards and just wear them as a bow tie. That's more Azog, and that's the real difference between their mentalities. Add on the fact that, Azog also has body armor, so that makes it difficult for Myers to get probably a lethal hit in just by trying to stab him there. And Azog will have at least one sort of weapon besides his arm on him, so ultimately, I go Azog the Defiler. That was a lot more than I needed to do for this video, but 21 some odd minutes, I think I did a good job. So my money's on Azog. I'm sure I'm going to get Michael Myers himself to argue this against. He's like, I can totally beat him, and this is why, Whatever. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. And I'll see you folks tomorrow for another Woodwind. Later, and have a good one.